Hey out there, and welcome to today's Search Engine Journal webinar. Hope you're having a great day, and we're thrilled to have you here with us. I am joined by Soubhik Ray of iQuanti, and we're going to be talking about what you need to know to measure your marketing's effectiveness. I'm sure everybody joining us today has felt like some of your marketing channels are like a void. It's a black hole. You know that the money goes in, but you're not real sure if you're getting anything on that backside, right? But today, Soubhik is going to show us where to find valuable insights to accurately optimize campaigns going forward and help you strategize your next campaigns. But before we get too far, my name's Heather. I'm your moderator today. Soubhik, thank you so much for being here with us. Tell us a little bit about yourself and iQuanti.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Heather, and good evening, good morning, everyone. So my name is Soubhik. I'm a Senior Director of Analytics at iQuanti. In my current role, I help our clients help their measurement and marketing measurement solutions. We at iQuanti are a full-service marketing agency. We work on performance marketing as well as digital analytics and help our clients solve their measurement problems as well as help execute campaigns effectively.
Awesome. So we'll give you guys just a little bit of like housekeeping tips, and then I'm going to kick it off to Soubhik to take it from there. So first, if you experience any technical difficulties, please use the chat box to let us know. There's separate tabs for the chat and questions, so take a second to get familiar with those up in the top right of your screen. If you see a question that you would like to ask, or to make sure that we ask our host, you can upvote those questions, give them a little thumbs up, and we'll answer as many of them as we can at the end of the presentation. There's also closed captioning. It's the little CC in the top right corner. So if you click that, you'll turn the closed captioning on. And we'll do our best throughout to link to any resources or tools. But if we miss one, just ask, and resources will be included in your recap email that you'll receive later today. And after the webinar, we ask if you can stick around for a short survey. It only takes a minute or so, and it really just helps us gauge what works and how we can make these webinars more useful for you. And lastly, it's one of the most important questions that we get asked. You will absolutely receive the recording and the slides and any resources in your inbox today after a couple hours after the webinar, and use hashtag SEJwebinars with an S on the end to share any cool tidbits from today's learning on social. And with that, I'm going to get out of here. Soubhik, it's all yours.
Thanks a lot, Heather. So in today's discussion, what we are going to cover is we are going to briefly talk about what is marketing effectiveness, why is it important, and how do you measure effectiveness. Then what we'll discuss is some of the techniques available to marketers for measuring the marketing effectiveness. We will talk about what are the pros and cons of these marketing measurement techniques. And at the end, what we'll try to give you is a framework for understanding what is the right marketing technique for your business. So as I start, I'll start with this great quote that a lot of you must have heard by John Wanamaker. So he said that half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is I don't know which half. And this quote was given around 100 years back. And even now it looks like we still have some problem understanding how our marketing activities are performing. So the first thing that I want to start with is, let us define what is marketing effectiveness. So in terms of marketing, effectiveness is used to describe how campaigns or channels drive both brand effect as well as business outcomes like sale. Marketing effectiveness goes hand in hand with efficiency. So if your marketing is performing effectively, the cost of acquiring or the cost of executing a campaign is more efficient. So while different businesses may have different objectives, but the underlying goal of all marketers in all businesses is to understand what is the true return of their investment and to compare the return of different channels that they're using for marketing. So moving on, why is measuring marketing effectiveness important? So if you are able to measure your marketing's effectiveness, you will be able to answer questions like, what is the type of lead quality that I'm generating? What are the channels which are driving the best quality lead? What are the channels which give me the most qualified leads? And what having access to these information is going to give you is, one, you will be able to optimize the marketing activities that you're doing. So the different channel tactics, the different kind of creative messaging that you're using. The second thing that you'll be able to do is optimize your media budget. So depending on what is the return on investment that you're getting from different channels, you'll be able to optimally use your media budget to maximize the return on investment for marketing activity that you're doing. And the third thing majorly is what this will help you is having a good understanding of your marketing effectiveness will help you improve your overall business performance. So having understood that why it is important to measure marketing effectiveness, why is it difficult to measure effectiveness? So broadly, if you look at it, there are majorly two factors, two categories of factors which makes it difficult to understand the effectiveness. One is a set of external factors. So things like over time, the consumer path to purchase has become longer and more complicated. There are a lot of changes happening in the privacy landscape, which is restricting the amount of data that marketers marketers are able to access and are able to use. The third is the type of data that is available to marketers from different channels is also very different. And we'll get into a little more details of what do we mean by each of them. The second set of challenges that we see are more internal to a company. So things like there are a lot of challenges in terms of what type of data are we able to collect? Are we able to collect data in a very clean manner? The next thing that we see within organizations are a lot of data silos within an organization, and a team may not be able to access data from some other team. And the other thing that we see is that the data within these organizations, because of the data silo, are very disconnected. So marketing teams are not able to use maybe data that is collected by the sales team or by the services team. So these are some organizational factors which also limit or makes it challenging to understand the marketing effectiveness. So getting into more details of some of the external factors. So we spoke that the path to conversion has become longer. So what do I mean by that? So for example, recently when I was trying to do some research on a pair of jeans that I want to buy. So initially, as I was searching, I saw an ad come up on YouTube. So that was one interaction with the brand. Then later on, when I was browsing and searching on Google, I similarly saw a shopping ad come up on Google. When I was going through my Facebook feed, I again saw the Levi's ad. Now, and post seeing all this ad, if I take an action and purchase the jeans, it becomes very difficult to understand which was the main ad, or which of these touch points actually influenced me to take the decision. So this is one of the complications that we are seeing, that users have a lot of touch points when they are interacting and finally converting for a brand. The second thing, as we mentioned, the privacy landscape is changing significantly. So what do we mean by that? So what we are seeing there is the customer mindset has changed a lot. So people have become more aware about privacy, the type of data companies are collecting, about what type of information is being collected by browsers through cookies, etc. So people have become more aware of the type of data that marketers and other companies, tech companies, are collecting about them. The second change that is happening is in terms of regulatory changes. So things like GDPR, CCPA, CCRA, these are all, plus other state privacy laws, these are all restricting what data marketers or companies can collect about the end user. So things like what level of personal information are you able to collect? How are you able to use that information? So those are all getting regulated by the government governing bodies. The next thing is to be up to date with the regulatory changes and changing mindset. Even the tech companies like Google and Apple are making changes in their products to make sure that they are more privacy safe and privacy friendly for the end users. So some of the trends that we are seeing because of all these changes are, so based on some survey done by AppsFlyer, what they report is around 85% of the top 1,000 sites use third-party cookies. And because of the announcement of third-party cookies getting deprecated on Safari and Firefox, and also going to be deprecated later on in Chrome, there is an estimate that there is going to be a loss of around 10 billion for the publishers. So which is going to be a major impact that the marketing ecosystem is going to face. The other thing that we are seeing is that after the launch of Apple's app transparency protocol, which asks the user that are they okay with apps tracking them across different apps. So what has been reported is 63% of user consumers are declining that are declining the option to get tracked across different apps, which again is drastically reducing the amount of data that is available to a lot of the tech players. An estimate is that Facebook in 2022 is going to lose around $10 billion because of the ATT changes. So, and the third thing that I mentioned, so there is also a lot of the challenges in terms of the quality or the type of data that is available. So different platforms that the marketers use give different types of data. So what I mean by that, so for example, platforms like some of the programmatic channels will give you data at an impression level or even at a user level. Whereas say when you're using television for marketing, you may be getting data at a much more aggregate level. Similarly, say you're using Facebook, you may be able to get data at different cuts like audience level, creative level, but again, the data is very aggregate. So that becomes difficult to measure the effectiveness. The second challenge that we see is in terms of what is the granularity of data. So for example, some channels like DV360, Campaign Manager, etc., they using some protocols like data transfer, you are able to get data at a user ID level. But some of the other channels may not be able to give you data at that granularity. So the granularity of data that is available from different channels is also not consistent, and that causes a difficulty in how do you measure your advertising effectiveness. The third challenge that we see in terms of data available from different marketing platforms is in terms of what frequency is this data getting updated or is getting refreshed. So for example, even within the Google ecosystem, Google Ads gives you a data freshness of around 3 to 4 hours, whereas Google Analytics has a data freshness ranging from 1 minute to 24 hours. So as you can see that when any measurement solution or any measurement approach that you build, not having a consistent data freshness from different channels makes it very difficult to understand and analyze the data from different channels together. So these are broadly three challenges that we are seeing, the external challenges that we are seeing, which limit the marketers' ability to measure their campaign effectiveness. So at this point, I'll take a pause and we'll run a quick poll. So just wanted to understand how well are you able to measure your marketing effectiveness? So are you very effective? Are you able to do that very effectively? Are you you are able to do it slightly, you're not able to measure it effectively, or you're not sure and you would like to have a concern? So we'll pause for 30 to 40 seconds as people respond to this poll.
And so that should pop up for most of you. If it doesn't, you can find it under the polls tab in that top right corner. So far, Shabik, it looks like we got about 70%, well, 63% of people saying slightly effective, and we got about 30% saying not effectively.
We'll give it a couple of more seconds.
Yeah, I think that's about where they're going to shake out. We got about half of our responses on that. So yeah, it looks like they kind of leveled out at 65% said slightly effective and 26 said not effectively.
Okay, perfect. So now looks like a lot of people have difficulty in measuring the effectiveness. So let us start with what is the right approach to start measuring effectiveness. So the first thing that we have to do to measure effectiveness is to set up the foundation. So what do I mean by this? So a big challenge that we see with a lot of marketers and clients that we work with is they don't have the right, or they have not defined what is the right business KPI or business metric that they want to measure and they want to optimize for. Also, in case they have already set up the right KPIs and metrics, they're not tracking it the right way. So what I'll do is I'll quickly share a framework that people can refer to measure effectively the marketing performance and the KPIs. So what traditionally should be done is first try to create a framework which will help you in a structured way collect the data or the inputs from different stakeholders, like what are the important business KPIs. And I'll give you an example of one of the frameworks that we use. So a very structured way of understanding or conducting discussions with your different stakeholders to understand what are the key business metrics that are important to them. Once you get inputs from them, the second thing is design a solution that will help you capture these metrics or these KPIs that the business wants. And as part of capturing these metrics and KPIs, what you should also think about is how do you standardize the data collection, especially from digital channels? Because one of the challenges that we see with a lot of our clients is the way they are capturing the campaign data is not very standard. As a result, doing any kind of analysis or drilling down or reporting becomes very difficult. So to talk about the structured way of conducting a stakeholder discussion and gather the marketing and business KPIs. So this is a top-down approach or top-down approach that can be followed. So start with understanding what are the focus areas for your business, for your marketing leadership, for your business leadership. So understand the focus areas for them, and maybe this is something that you conduct at an annual frequency or maybe biannual frequency. So things that you would like to capture here are things like, for example, the business wants to increase the acquisition that does to the digital channel. So this could be the focus area that the business wants to focus in a given year. Now, based on this focus area, the different teams within the organization will have different goals. That, for example, the marketing team may say that, okay, as part of this focus area, I want to increase my digital growth or digital acquisition by X percentage. So this is the goal that the different teams will own up. Now, based on this goal, then what you do is you understand what are the KPIs that will help you measure this particular goal. So, for example, the marketing strategy team or the channel teams may say that, okay, as part of this goal, I want to increase my the amount of clients that I'm sourcing from digital channel by X percentage. And against this particular KPI, then you understand what is the metric that the different channel teams or the different teams should be capturing. For example, for this particular KPI goal, it could be that I want to increase the number of, or I want to capture the number of clients that are being sourced by contact me form. So this is a very structured way that people can use to understand and identify what are the different important business metrics that they should be capturing. So once you understand what are the different metrics that you're capturing, the second thing that I mentioned is also you should focus on how do you make sure that the data that you're capturing from the different campaigns are being captured in a very standard way. So there are no anomalies in the type of data that you are capturing. So one of the framework that you can use is, so this is a UTM tracking framework. So where you define exactly what type of UTM parameters you want to use for capturing the different details, like what is the source of the traffic, source of the lead, what is the medium of the lead, what was the campaign, what term, what content. So these 5 parameters can be used to get into a lot of details. So come up with the UTM tagging parameter. Then based on that, I understand what is the different UTM parameters that you want to use. For example, you may put some additional details into the type of campaigns that you're running. For example, this is an awareness campaign being run for a particular geo. So you come up with such standards of how do you want to set up the UTM parameters. One thing that we also see in for some of our clients is that they want to not make this data available to the people who are interacting with the campaign. So you also have the option of encoding these tracking parameters. Once you have defined the UTM parameter, you have standardized the values that you're going to capture as part of these UTM parameters, and also depending on the use case, you encode this. The last thing will be that now you have to roll it out to the organization. So you can look at some external tools like Terminus, which helps you set this up, or you can also maybe create an Excel file, Excel-based template generate or UTM parameter generator, where different marketing teams, as they are executing any campaigns, they put in their values, they get the UTM tracking URL, and they use that in their marketing campaigns. So this could be one standard way in which you can standardize the campaign data that you're capturing. In addition to collecting data, few of the other things that marketers should focus as they're building the foundation for data collection, which will be used for measuring effectiveness is. So channels like Google are giving you an option called enhanced conversion, which lets you track data even in the absence of cookies. So what Google Enhanced Conversion lets you do is, as people are converting on your website and you are capturing any kind of PII information about the users, you can pass this information back to Google. And what Google does is it matches this information with the first party data that it has about the user. And what it is able to do is give you a better visibility into how the person converted and what are the different touch points that they interacted in the Google ecosystem. So this in a way helps you overcome some of the challenges that are coming because of deprecation of cookies. Similar to Google, Facebook also launched an approach called Conversions API, which lets you pass data that you're capturing about a user who has converted back into Facebook. So in addition to any interaction that is happening on the website, you can use the Facebook conversion API to send information like what is the type of the user who has converted, any additional attributes that you have about the user, all of this back to Facebook. And what this helps Facebook do is it is able to use this information to better target, better optimize your ads on Facebook platform. So these are some ways in which you can standardize or you can help build your measurement foundation. At this point, we'll take another quick poll. So just want to understand in terms of setting up a data foundation, at what stage are you? Is this something already in place? Are you in the process of developing this? Do you plan to do this, or this is not something you have in mind, you have not planned for yet?
Again, that one should pop up for you too. So those are just starting to come through. But Shabik, while those are coming through, we did have a question about UTMs, and we kind of answered that. But do you want to explain just a little bit what a UTM is?
Sure. So when using the Google ecosystem, especially when looking at Google Analytics, UTM are parameters. They are called urchin tracking mechanisms. So they are some kind of tracking mechanism that Google Analytics provide for capturing information about the campaigns that are being executed. So there are 5 UTM parameters that you can pass to Google Analytics. So it is source, medium, the campaign, term, and the content. So things like source could be, this is a CPC, this is coming from search. The medium could be CPC, it is a paid search ad. Campaign could be maybe an awareness campaign. You can pass what keyword is driving that, and also maybe some details about the content. So similar to UTM, Adobe also provides something called as tracking code, which can be used to get additional details about the campaign.
Perfect. That was a great background. Okay, so back to the poll. So we got about 33% people saying yes, 33% saying development in process, and then 24 saying not yet. Just a couple of them have planned. So most of them are in the yes and then in process.
Great. So now if you already have your data foundation in place, now let's look at what are some of the ways in which you can measure your marketing effect. What are some of the techniques available for you to measure your marketing effectiveness? So broadly, when looking at some of the techniques available, so these are the 3 major categories of approaches that you can use for measuring your marketing performance effectiveness. First is attribution. The next technique that you can use is incrementality or experimentation. Third is media mix modeling. Typically, what we have seen is attribution. Digital attribution is used by marketers for optimizing day-to-day online advertising. Incrementality or experimentation is majorly used for testing out certain hypotheses. So, for example, I am launching a new product. This is the demographic of people, or this is the geo which may have a better adoption of this particular product. So testing out different hypotheses. So you can use experimentation or incrementality. Media mix modeling traditionally has been used for understanding the relationship between different factors and how your business perform, and also for taking long-term strategic decisions about how do you optimize your budget across different media channels. And in the subsequent slides, we'll be getting into more details about each of these techniques. So before we get into each of these techniques, let us understand how is spend measured, because a good understanding of how effectively different campaigns are performing is how the spend metrics that you're tracking for that particular campaign. So by default, there are a lot of spend metrics that marketers capture. So things like cost per impression, cost per thousand impressions, CPC, CPA, etc. But what I would like to discuss here is three cost metrics that help you understand, one, how well each of your campaigns are performing, and also how well you can compare, or how you can get a better understanding of how these different techniques are able to give you additional information. So starting with the most basic cost metric that we look at, which is cost per acquisition, CPA. So what CPA does is it looks at all the conversions that are attributed to a particular channel and tries to distribute how much, what was the cost of acquiring all these conversions. So it is a very standard metric that most of the marketers use. And the major reason for this is it is a simplicity, but there are certain inherent challenges with that. So one of the challenges that comes with CPA is that a lot of times there are conversions which would have happened even without a marketing effort. So for example, think of it this way, that there is a store and there is a person standing with the banner for the store, and anybody who purchases from the store gets is attributed to this banner. So anybody who's walking towards the store, so typically what happens is the person who's holding the banner gets all the credit, because the person walking into the store actually saw the banner. But did that actually influence that person to take a decision? May not be the case. So that is why CPA has certain inherent limitations or challenges. The other metric that you can look at is cost per incremental acquisition. So what this metric looks at is this looks at how much are you spending for getting the conversions that are coming from this channel. So for example, in this example, so maybe the number of conversions that were influenced by the marketing channel were 50, and you had spent $10,000 on the overall marketing campaign. So the cost per incremental acquisition is actually 200. So when compared to CPA, you actually see that you are spending higher to acquire the customers using this channel. And what this helps you do is it helps you understand or get a better sense of what is the health of your acquisition. The third metric that you should be capturing is what is the marginal cost of acquiring a customer. So this is how much do you have to spend to get one additional customer. So for example, in this scenario, the cost, so for example, it takes $1,000 to acquire 4 users or 4 conversions from a particular channel. So the marginal cost of acquisition is say $250. If the incremental conversions, or if the response curve of a channel was linear, the cost per incremental acquisition and marginal cost of acquisition would be the same. But typically what we see is all channels have a declining or have a declining effect as when it goes up on those channels. So why is marginal cost per acquisition important? So what marginal cost of acquisition lets you know is how profitable or how valuable is the client that you're able to get from a particular channel. So for example, if the lifetime value of a customer is lower than the marginal cost of acquisition from a particular channel, that channel may not be viable. So for understanding how effective is a particular channel, this is another important metric that should be captured and tracked. So now getting back into the 3 techniques that we spoke about, digital attribution, incrementality, and media mix modeling. So what is digital attribution? So digital attribution is an approach where you give credit or you assign credit to different touch points in the customer journey that leads to conversion. So for example, typically these are some kind of customer journey that you would see, that a person may have interacted with YouTube, then seen a Facebook ad, then come from an organic channel and converted. Similarly, there will be different types of journeys that people are taking. And the idea is what attribution tries to do is convert this data into something like the table on the right hand side. So for example, of the total conversions that your business is seeing, 20% can be attributed to YouTube, 45% is attributed to shopping, 35% is attributed to Facebook. So this is what a digital attribution model tries to solve for. So there are 2 ways in which digital attribution models can be built. So one is rule-based, which are simpler to do. So first stage attribution, this is where the channel which introduced a person who converted to your business gets the complete credit. The next is last stage attribution, where the channel which helped close a particular conversion gets all the credit. Linear is where you distribute the credit linearly over all channels. Then you have time decay, where as the touch point is away from the conversion, you give less credit to that. So these are some rule-based attribution models that can be built. Also, some platforms let you build some kind of custom attribution model where you can assign different weight based on your business understanding to different channels. The second way of building attribution model is using a data-driven or more algorithmic way of doing it. So there are 2 popular ways of doing it: Markov chain and Shapley value. I won't get into the details of how these approaches work, but these are two data-driven way or 2 algorithmic way of building attribution model. So some of the challenges that we see with attribution modeling: 1, user tracking is difficult. So because of the privacy regulation, the data granularity, tracking users and creating the user journey is difficult. So that is one big challenge. The second challenge that we see, especially, is there is a lot of double counting which happens. So, for example, uh, when you're using multiple channels, for example, Facebook, Google Ads, so what you do is on the conversion, at the conversion point, you assign or you put the pixel of these platforms. So anytime a conversion happens within the attribution windows of this platform, both these platforms will take credit for the conversion. So as a result, what you see is the amount of conversion that the platforms are reporting versus what you may be seeing in your backend system are not matching. And this is one of the biggest challenge with attribution. One more big challenge with attribution is they are primarily confined to digital, only into digital channels. Any kind of offline activities can't be attributed, or it is very difficult to attribute it. Same is the case with offline conversions. You have to put additional effort to create those journeys where you're able to connect digital with offline conversions to attribute to do a good attribution model. And the biggest limitation with attribution model, what we feel is you are only able to look at CPA. You are not able to look at the cost per incremental acquisition or the marginal cost of acquisition. The next approach is incrementality or experimentation, where the objective is what you are trying to do is you are trying to measure what is the desired lift that you are getting or what is the business lift that you are getting because of doing doing any kind of marketing intervention. And the way it is typically run is you group your users or you distribute your users into test and control groups. So tests are the people who are exposed to an ad. Control group are the people who are not seeing an ad. Then in this case, for example, the test group is shown ads on a particular channel, say Facebook, and the control group is not shown an ad. And what you are then seeing is what is the difference in the conversion rate or other business metric between these two groups. And based on that, what you're able to see is that this is the amount of lift that my advertising or my marketing intervention is able to drive. So typically there are two approaches to running an experiment. So one is at a user level. So when using channels like direct mail or coupons, you can use a user level approach of distributing your audiences. So what you do is you break your audience list into test group and control group, and then you show the test group or you send the test group the ads, whereas control group you hold. The second way of doing it is in a geo level. So a lot of times what we see is clients are not able to distribute their audiences very cleanly. In those cases, what we recommend is using a geo test where you group geos into test geos and control geos, and then run your ads. So there are different packages available. For example, Facebook has something called as GeoLift, which can help you distribute your geos into test and control. Similarly, Google has something called as market matching algorithm, which can help you distribute your geos into test and control. So these are some ways in which you can distribute your audiences. Once the audiences are distributed, you execute your campaigns, and then based on the campaign results, you then are able to understand or conclude what is the amount of lift that your marketing activities are driving. Some of the drawbacks that we see with incremental testing is if you don't distribute your audience properly, the test results may not be accurate. So having distribution of your audiences or your geo is very critical to running a successful incrementality test. The second challenge that we see is that identifying the optimal test duration is something which is not easy. So there's a lot of time has to be spent understanding what is the type of traffic, what is the type of what is going to be the segment size when you are running this test, so that you are able to conclusively conclude that this test result that you're seeing is actually statistically significant or no. The third important factor is external factors. So a lot of times when you're executing the test, if you're not able to control for external factors, it becomes very difficult, or they may have an influence on the results that you're seeing as part of the test. So these are some of the challenges that we see when running an incrementality test. The third technique is media mix modeling. So media mix modeling, so the idea here is that you're trying to use some statistical techniques to find the relationship between the sales variable that you are measuring with any kind of influencing variable that you may have. So you may be running multiple marketing campaigns, offline campaigns, online campaigns, or any kind of other promotions. And also there may be factors like competition, economy, seasonality, which are all influencing your sales. And what MMM tries to do is tries to understand or quantify what is the impact of each of this on your overall business outcome of sales. So some of the output that you are able to generate as part of MMM is you are able to identify what is the baseline. So what would be the amount of business outcome that I will be able to drive even without any kind of marketing. You are able to find out what is the incremental value or incremental contribution of each of the marketing channels. In addition to this, you are also able to look at few things like ad stock, the ad decay rate, etc., which helps you get a sense of how long or how well your different ad channels or the different channels that you're using are performing. Some of the benefits of media mix modeling. One, this is one of the most privacy-friendly way of measuring and analyzing marketing performance. Even incrementality is same, but it overcomes some of the challenges that our attribution has. So in this, you're not looking at user level data, but you're looking at aggregate data for doing the analysis. And this is going to be the least impacted because of any kind of deprecation of or any kind of data losses that may be happening. The second is this is a very holistic, so it not only focuses on online, but you can also take into consideration any kind of offline activity that you may be doing, any kind of external factors that may be influencing your business. And the third is it is very flexible, so you can try to model any kind of business outcome or any kind of business performance. Could be your sales, could be your brand awareness, could be website traffic. So media mix modeling lets you focus on all of these things. So some of the major challenges with media mix modeling has been the limited amount of data. So one of the challenge with media mix modeling is the amount of data that you need to train the model. So typically what we see is that any kind of parameter, any kind of channel that you're using for analysis, you need at least 7 to 10 data points about that channel. So that is why it becomes very difficult to get into very granular analysis when using media mix modeling, because the amount of data required for doing or factoring in as a campaign or a particular creative, the data requirement increases significantly. The second challenge that we see is correlation of input variables. So typically what we see in businesses is that the spend on different channels increases based on certain factors. For example, when a holiday season is coming, the spend on all channels may go up at the same time. So there is a correlation between the different input variables that you have. The next thing is that the type of data that media mix that you are able to give to a model is very limited. So you may be able to give certain range of channel data into the model, but trying to predict based on that what will happen if I don't do any spend on this channel, or what will happen if I change my spend to a range which the model has not seen, the results become very inaccurate. The last thing is there is some kind of selection bias which happens, so which also impacts the type of results that we are able to generate using media mix modeling. But having said that, there are a lot of advancements in algorithms, in computational power, which makes refreshing or building a media mix modeling much more easier, and also it is possible to get into more granular details of what is possible using media mix modeling. So now I'll quickly talk about some of the pros and cons of each of the measurement techniques that I spoke about. So digital attribution or multi-touch attribution, the biggest pro is it is very easy to understand and explain and use the findings from digital attribution for optimizing your campaigns. The biggest cons of this is you can only look at or focus on online channels. You can't look into any non-digital channels. The next thing is most of the times because of cookie restrictions, doing any kind of ad level attribution is becoming difficult. So for example, until and unless you are in the walled garden, doing any kind of ad impression level attribution is difficult. Also, trying to use attribution model for full media portfolio planning is also not possible. You can only use it for focusing or for optimizing your digital portfolio. When talking about incrementality, this is the gold standard of measuring what is the incremental value that your marketing is driving. And the second benefit or pro of this is it is not dependent on ad platform. So most of the ad platforms you will be able to execute incrementality testing. So for example, a geo test or an audience test. So it is not restricted by ad platform. The biggest cons of incrementality are there is an opportunity cost that you're losing. So when you are allocating people to the control group, you're not showing them an ad, and as a result, there's an opportunity cost associated with that. So there may be a set of people who would have converted, but you're losing them. The second challenge with incrementality testing is you can only measure a couple of interventions. The more number of interventions you want to measure, you need a longer test duration. Also, the complexity of analysis increases. The third challenge with incrementality is it is in point in time. So you can't take the learnings from incrementality and use it throughout the year. So it is like, so as a result, you should constantly keep running your tests. So that is one of the biggest drawbacks of incrementality. When coming to media mix modeling, one of the biggest benefits of media mix modeling is you can factor in all type of media channels that you're using, in addition to any kind of non-media factors, for example, price or any promotion that you're running. You can use this for media planning, and also this is one technique where you can actually calculate what is the marginal cost of acquisition. So this is what is possible using MMM. Biggest cons of media mix modeling: you need a lot of data to be able to build a media mix model. So we have seen clients who don't have sufficient data and were not able to build media mix model. The next thing is using the insights from media mix modeling for ad optimization. There is some amount of effort which will have to be put to build such granular models. So that is still a con because there is a lot of research happening on that side. Also, some of the marketers feel that media mix modeling model is like a black box. They don't have a very good understanding of why this particular recommendation is coming. So these are some of the cons of media mix modeling. So having said that, looking at these three techniques, what we recommend is don't look at or go with only one of these techniques. What you can always do, especially when using media mix modeling, is that you can take learnings from say an experimentation or an attribution model to fine tune the parameters of media mix modeling. So there are techniques like Bayesian linear regression, rich regression, which can help you optimize or fine tune your media mix model. So always try to look at each of these techniques together in a holistic way, and not only focus on one single technique. So we have seen why marketing effectiveness is important. Why is it important to build a foundation? What are the techniques available for measuring marketing effectiveness? Now let me quickly take you through some of the factors that you should consider when evaluating or selecting a particular marketing technique. So first factor that you should consider is what is the data that you have available. So if you already have a data foundation in place and you are comfortable or you trust the data that you're capturing, that is one of the primary prerequisites. The next thing is, what is the amount of historical data that you have? What is the granularity of data? That to a large extent is going to determine what type of modeling technique you can use. The next factor which is important to consider is what type of resource do you have access to? Do you have data scientists? Do you have data engineers who are able to massage the data, able to collect the data? That is important. What type of tech stack do you have in place? Are you able to capture data properly? Is the tech stack integrated? Those are a few other factors that influence what type of measurement technique you should be looking at. The third factor is what type of use cases do you want to solve with these techniques? Are you planning to optimize your campaigns at a regular basis, or are you trying to validate particular hypothesis, or you are looking for insights to strategically distribute your budget? Those are also going to determine what technique makes sense. Also, the industry you are in. So what is the typical path to conversion? Is it a long cycle? Is it a short cycle? So these are few of the factors which will influence your decision of which marketing technique will be the best for you. So I'll take a quick poll here before I pass it on to Heather. So just want to understand, based on today's session, how comfortable do you feel about the different measurement techniques and what will make sense for you?
All right. So one more time, that should pop up for you, but if you don't see it, it's under the Q&A tab. So we'll wait for a few of those to come in, but we definitely did get some good questions. So we'll get to those in just a second. Here we go. All right. So we've got 7 people saying definitely. They're ready. We've got about 50% saying they're somewhat ready, 12% saying not really, and we've got 1 person saying let's talk. So yeah, we'll leave that open for just a minute. And you know what? I realize. Do you have anything else to go through, Shabik? And we'll just kind
No,
of
I think we are good. So I'll
We
pass
good?
it back to you.
All right. Well then, let's get to some of these questions. Okay. So one of the first questions. So you went through the UTM, so I appreciate you going through that. So since the title is, measuring marketing effectiveness, one of the first questions was from Alfred. He says, when you say effective, do you mean money made? So, how would you define effective?
So in our definition, we define. So again, it depends from business to business. From our point of view, it is how efficiently we are be able to use the money that was allocated to a particular channel. So in terms of cost per acquisition, cost per incremental acquisition, that is the measure of effectiveness when we talk about effectiveness.
Yeah, depends on what they're measuring, right? So with third-party cookies phasing out or phase out delayed a little further, how do we effectively use this buffer time that we have left?
So ideally, what we will recommend is, so first thing is, as we have got some more breathing time before the first third-party cookies get replicated, what we'll recommend is trying out these different techniques. For example, building a media mix model takes some time. Coming up with the right framework for experimentation, that takes some time. So this time can be used for optimizing or for focusing on these approaches. How do you build a media mix model? Get it internalized, get people comfortable with the findings of a media mix model. Similarly, get people comfortable with the experimentation approach. So this time can be used for testing out different measurement techniques which works for your business.
Great. So is asking, how do you identify which lead has come from which campaign keywords when you have more leads? So, I think that kind of goes back to the UTM, but yeah, you want to dig into that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think UTM parameters is so generally what we have seen is, so there could be leads coming on the online channel, there could be leads on the offline channel. So when looking at online leads, typically the UTM parameters give us that level of detail. Also, in some cases, what we will recommend is maybe passing on some granular value like a cookie ID or something, which can be used for tracking it. In case you want to match your online campaign with offline lead, what we recommend is using some kind of a unique identifier, which will help you connect the offline lead with the online campaign. And that way you are able to find out which of these leads are generated by which marketing activities.
And so we've had a couple questions, about the loss of data, the loss of cookies. So Kate asks, how do we approach relying on attribution as we head to the future with the loss of tracking in the user journey data?
So this is a great question. So attribution, as we know, is becoming more and more difficult because primarily because of loss of data. But what we feel is that attribution, so that kind of gives you one. So if you think about all these three approaches: attribution, media mix modeling, experimentation, they're all trying to look at the same behavior from different lenses. So a good way to think about it will be that take attribution, see what are the insights or what are the values or what are the factors or the contribution that you're seeing from attribution, and try to compare it with the other techniques that you're seeing. So in a way that you are able to then see that, okay, do I see similar behavior or similar patterns across all the channels or all the techniques? So that will be a good way to take learnings from attribution and optimize or select other techniques.
Okay. So let's see, can you highlight the pros and cons of the user level and geo level incrementality testing approaches?
Sure. So generally one of the biggest pros of geo level incrementality testing is that this is one of the easiest experiment to set up on all platforms, because you are able to control what geos you want your ads to run in. Whereas with user level, one of the biggest challenge what happens is because of people clearing their cookies, it is very difficult, or the complete segregation of user doesn't happen. So that becomes very difficult, or one of the major cons of user level testing. But when looking at, say, testing out direct mail or coupons, a user level technique may be the best way to do it, because you are able to know which group did you send to, and when somebody converts, you know from which group did this person convert. So you're able to get a complete view of what drove this conversion.
Great. Okay, so this is a good question, and this is going to depend on the type of business, right? But this is how do you get started finalizing or zeroing in on the right measurement technique for your business?
Yeah, as you mentioned, Heather, this depends a lot on the industry or the business that you have. So as we spoke about evaluating which measurement techniques work for you. So, for example, businesses which have long conversion cycle. So attribution may not be the right thing because there are a lot of touch points which may be lost because the tracking, etc., is becoming difficult. So for such a business, maybe experimenting or building a media mix modeling may make more sense. Whereas for businesses, for example, retail, which has or an e-commerce, which has a much more shorter conversion cycle, maybe an attribution model with an experimentation or an attribution model with media mix modeling may be a better thing.
So Mishra asks, how can we effectively use LinkedIn Sales Navigator and do the measurements? You talked a little bit about Facebook. Can that be put into other networks?
I think I don't have an answer for this. I'll maybe check internally and get back to you.
Perfect. All right. Alexandra asks, so if we choose an attribution technique and then we use Google Analytics, for example, but if we want to try a media mixed modeling technique, what tool would we use?
So there are a lot of open source packages available now for media mix modeling. So, for example, Facebook has launched a package called Robin, which can be used for media mix modeling. In addition to that, there are custom models which can be built. But if somebody wants to start building a media mix modeling or wants to understand what type of results they can get, so some of these packages like Robin could be a good alternative.
Okay. I think we got about one more question, Soubhik. And so let's see. And this is kind of similar. Jaskin is asking, in your experience, is the media mixed modeling an effective way to measure and optimize individual campaigns since it provides aggregated data, or should it be used only to understand channel performance?
Yeah, so that is a great question. So the amount of or the type of optimization that you can do will depend on what level of data or the amount of data you have access to. So, for example, if you have sufficient data where you are able to give data at a campaign level for media mix modeling, you can definitely use insights from media mix modeling to optimize your campaign. But the biggest challenge that we see is that as the number of factors keep increasing in media mix modeling, the amount of data required to model it also keeps increasing. So, and that is one of the biggest challenge that we see with a lot of clients adopting media mix modeling. They don't have a lot of historical data. A lot of things keep changing over time. But having said that, there are a lot of granular approaches to media mix modeling which are being developed, which can definitely be considered. For example, even in Robin, you can try to feed in more granular data, and it can give you insights which can be used for optimizing your campaigns as well.
Awesome. All right, Soubhik. Well, I think we've gotten through at least most of the questions. If we didn't get to any, then please know that we're going to send those over to the iQuanti team, and they can get back to you. But that being said, Soubhik, anything that you want to leave them with, and please, let them know, how to get in touch with you and where they can find you.
Sure. So in case there are any further questions, please feel free to reach out to me. This is my email address. So, and we will be more than happy to, maybe if you want to have a conversation or if you want to get in touch with us over email, we will be more than happy to answer your questions over email or chat.
Excellent. And so like we said, if you missed the beginning, you will absolutely receive this recording and the slides and everything, any handouts later today in your inbox. So keep an eye for that. And we've gotten to the end. So Soubhik, thank you so much for being here and dropping all of this knowledge on us. This was good stuff. And I think our readers took a lot away from it. So thank you. Thank you all who joined us. Have a great day. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye.